Hey, thanks for joining us on Knowledge Drop with Weston and Jay. Um, Again, this is Jay Turner. He is the owner of Avian Golf and extensive knowledge in club building, club manufacturing, and fitting. And today we have a really cool topic we're going to discuss. Some people may consider it boring, but it's really, really interesting to me. And it's shaft length and why it's important and how it affects golfers and their game. And one of the things I've noticed is that there's no uniform way to fit people across the industry. Some people have a ruler, and whatever the number comes up that you're standing next to the ruler, you may get a half-inch long, or if you're with another OEM, you might get an inch long, and all the standards are different across the board. And so I've heard a lot of people actually mention that they get different fits when they go to different locations. And what I want to focus on today is shaft length, because I think that should be a pretty important part to fitting, don't you think?
Yes, definitely. We refer to shaft length as one of the components of size. So it's one of the starting points. Grip size, line angle, shaft length, all are size components. And length basically, and I'm going to speak in terms of an iron for the sake of discussion. Length is an extension from you to be able to deliver the golf club head to the ball on the ground. And so people are all different shapes and sizes and all different heights off the ground. And if you're higher off the ground or taller in a playing position, it just stands to reason that you need a little bit more length to get down to the ball effectively. And what I've found over the years, last time we actually looked at the database and counted over 50,000 people since 1984. We fit a lot of very different people, and there's not one size fits all like you see in the marketplace or on the rack. That maybe works by accident 9 to 10% of the time effectively. The other 90% are all over the place. And it's really important that length is correct so that the club accommodates you rather than you having to accommodate the golf club and make compensating adjustments to get yourself to the golf ball effectively. And some of those compensations that we see when a club is too short is you'll see very hunchy posture in the back. You'll see too much tilt at the hip joint where the head of the trochanter enters the hip joint. And also one other thing is people will tend to bend their knees too much. And any of those accommodations or combinations of such will hamper your ability to move efficiently, meaning you'll have to straighten up or make another move away from the ball so that you can swing the club freely and then dive back down into it. So when clubs are too short, they're inherently less efficient. You'll develop less speed. You'll move less freely. You will definitely hit the ball less consistently, more thin, more fat. And the initial thing, also lose it to the right probably a little bit more. Those are directional things we see. And most of us learn and judge a swing based on where the ball ends up. If the club fits poorly, that has an influence on where that ball is ending up. And hence, the feedback you're getting based on the result is not all based on what you did. Mm-hmm. You have another mitigating factor entering the equation that's muddying up the work, so to speak. So it's really important that length is correct to enable you to get into a good, sound, athletic posture. Mm-hmm. Way back in the day when we invented our dimensional fitting system, I was fortunate enough to work with a spine physician in Seattle who's actually the Seahawks spine doctor as well. And he used to still sends me his back patients that are golfers that have issues with lower back. And he'll give me a little heads up call. Hey, this guy's coming in. He loves to play. He doesn't want to give it up. I want them to be able to get out of bed the next morning. And so that's kind of where we collaborated many years ago and developed this system so that it was a safe, efficient, biomechanically sound method to fit length.
And
Go ahead.
I had some experience in this myself because I kind of have a unique body type. I'm 6'3", so very tall, but I also wear like a 37.5-inch sleeve. So I have really long arms. In fact, most people are vertical rectangles. Some people are squares, meaning when you stretch your arms out, you're a perfect square. Your tip to tip is the height of your body. But I'm actually a flat rectangle. So my wingspan is 6'8", and I stand 6'3". And every time I got fit by a standard fitting process, they fit me into standard. And I'm an athlete. So what happened was, for years I just experienced back pain, and I fit right. The clubs fit, at least that's what I thought. But what happened was I was just hunched over too much, and funny enough, I did get longer clubs once I went through the dimensional fitting with you. But it turns out that extra inch or inch and a quarter that I got made a huge difference because my angles changed, my spine angle changed. I was in a workable area. And so I think that's a relatable experience where some golfers just think, well, I got the clubs fit, but my back hurts today. So it's just my back. And since I've been able to have clubs that fit me and I can stand in a comfortable position, I have significantly less back issues. And I think it's a pretty powerful fitting system when you have based it off of research from spine doctors.
Right. And it basically what that centers around is we want your spine tilt at your lower back to be between, safe range is between 30 degrees and about 38. When you get more acute tilt than that, then it tightens where the load is placed in the back in a more specific area, more focused. You want to spread that load over a bigger area of your spine, then there's less stress and hence less pain. It's just a safer way to do it, and more efficient because your hips are then free to rotate as you move back and through and clear and get through, and you can develop some of that separation that's talked about with a lot of the teachers nowadays.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, and in regards to swing, I mean, I'm a former PGA pro and used to teach, and so I feel like I understand a little bit about the swing. But one thing I've seen with people with shorter clubs, and we'll just take in part like a tour pro that bends over a lot, say like Keegan Bradley. We're pretty similar in size, and I used to have a posture very much like his. But I can imagine, you're either an athlete and you kind of deal with it, or you can really have the clubs work for you and fit you properly to make things a little bit easier on you. And even we saw a recent video with Rocco Mediate. He's notorious for talking about his back pain in golf, and his recent fitting was to get him more upright to alleviate the stress and pain that he was feeling. And if clubs fit, they shouldn't hurt. At least that's what I assume.
That's a fair assumption. I would agree with that. And the thing that's interesting with most tour players, they're amazing athletes, and they have the ability to adjust to a golf club within 3 swings. I've seen it firsthand with couples. We grew up together, so the times that he was in, he can make something work just based on wiggling it around and swinging it 3 times and hit it great. Problem is he's making adjustments that aren't maybe optimum in the overall scheme of things. And Keegan Bradley's another great example. His clubs are too short. He sits back on his heels. He's got a lot of raising vertical motion in his swing. yet when he's on, he has the ability to time it and match it up. And some of the other guys I've seen that up close and personal, watching events, that have played with stuff that's too short, in my opinion, would be a guy like Vijay Singh. He's got to make a move coming through short irons, up and out of the way. Great player, can't argue with the record. Nick Faldo's another one, built like a strong safety. Just, you look at this guy in person, you go, oh my God. And yet he isn't as long as you think he should be given his stature. And I think that's due to the fact he's played something that, in my opinion, looks a little too short. And he has a lot of curvature from the middle of his mid-back thoracic spine to accommodate that, to make himself smaller to reach golf ball. Mm-hmm. And that makes it harder to rotate efficiently. You know, at least from the start, you have some of that coming through at impact where you have vertical side bend, but you don't want to start with that rounded posture right off the get-go, in my opinion.
Yeah, and what I've seen as an instructor, if golfers are too bent over and they lack the flexibility and mobility at the lower end of their spine, they actually stand out of it. And you get what we call just bobbing for apples. Right. And most people think it's a swing technique thing. But, you know, as we know, bodies are just built different. Some people are like Joaquin Neiman and they can bend over sideways, and some people can't. But there is a safe range of mobility. And if the clubs are the right length, then golfers won't be forced to stand out of the shot because the clubs were too long. You know, I've seen a lot of amateurs overbend their knees and their hands are kind of sticking between their thighs as they're trying to reach down and get the club on the ground. And, you know, most golfers don't realize some of those greats like Jack Nicklaus or Tiger or Ben Hogan, they actually stood very upright next to the ball. And it's a very free flowing and athletic position. It's not very bent over at all.
Right. And that's, you know, I'm case in point, because we fit a lot of really big people, NBA players and that kind of stuff. And then somebody like me who's smaller, I'm 5'7", I've got really long arms for my height, so I'm close to the ground. And when I started playing seriously in the early 70s, a standard 5-iron was 37 inches. And the lie angle at that point in time, because I played Wilson Staffs, was, I believe, 58. Fit me perfectly. I could walk right into it. And then a couple years later, length mysteriously jumped to half an inch as standard and a little bit more upright. And you're going from, you know, a Ben Hogan type era as a model who is kind of my size to somebody 5'9" to 5'11", Nicholas Palmer, in that range. And then another year later, it grew another half inch. And I struggled. I went from being able to play really well, and that's kind of what sent me on the quest is, number one, who says this is automatically right for everybody? Everybody's different. We don't all wear the same size shoe, for example. And you may not be Usain Bolt. You can buy his running shoes, but if they're not the right size, your performance is going to suffer one way or another. And so it becomes really important, from my view, that you get something. The club is a tool, and the tool needs to fit. And the length is a huge component of the fit. That needs to be as accurate as possible. And if it is, then you're going to have more fun, more success, and be able to get up the next day and not creak and groan and have to take a half a bottle of Advil to move around that day.
That's true. So yeah, bottom line is length is much more important than sometimes we realize or is assumed across the industry. And it can have, when you have the right length, it can have some pretty significant benefits to the golf game, but also your health. So
correct.
Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us today, Jay. Thank you for your insight, and we look forward to more content soon.